Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we are having a conversation, myself and Theodor Panayotov from Ethermind. We've been talking with each other for probably a year now, where we've been talking about AI, the future of AI, particularly the startup tech space, and how the agility of the startup tech space is really shaping what enterprises are able to do in the AI space. So welcome, Theo.
Thank you, Ash. Thanks for having me.
I'm sure this is going to be an amazing conversation. Let's do it,
Yeah,
right?
let's
So
go.
let's start off with the concept of a value chain. So one of the things I've been talking about a lot over the last few months, really, with different people, is that businesses have a value chain. So the value chain of a business is how they add value to the sector, how they ensure competitive advantage, how they take inputs, or whether it's products or services, and they process those based on the things that are unique to their business. So it might be that they have proprietary tech. It might be that they have particular experts or skills. It might be that they've configured their processes in a particular way that's advantageous. But there will be a sequence of things that a business can do from their inputs that produce outputs or outcomes that the market values. And that's how businesses tend to get. And when we think about value chains, we can think about that end-to-end kind of view of a business. But we can also think about, well, what are the enabling functions that are required to make that value chain work, even if they're not specifically part of the value chain? So people and skills are part of a value chain, whereas functions like L&D that help to develop or enable those people and skills, they sit as a support function to the value chain. So that's kind of how I'm conceptualizing that. And that allows us to think about the future in the age of generative AI. What is the future for the L&D department, where it sits usually in a business, how it serves the board, how it serves a vision, how it serves a strategy for a business in a way that hopefully is going to be robust and provides the skills and the people and all of these things for the business to work. And that's the reason for conceptualizing it like that, is that recently, last couple of years, we've had the boom of Gen AI, and we've had the talk of threat and disruption to nearly every profession. So how do professions need to reconfigure themselves to maximize the use of whatever the current technologies are that we have access to? But also, how do functions like L&D need to upskill, change, transform for the future that we have? So what do you think the future is for L&D when we think about non-traditional value chains, when we think about the evolution of business because of generative AI?
Yeah. Look, I've been in the business for 18 years now. I'm getting old. So when I started off as a Cisco networking trainer, like professional networking. I thought like MPLS, the British Telecom. And back then it was all physical on-site classes. You flew places, it was exciting. Then COVID suddenly sped up things and everything moved online, and we suddenly moved to Zoom and Microsoft Teams and all those online platforms. And then we saw a huge uptick in all those, I call them content supermarkets, the plural sites, the Udemy's of the world, where you just pay a couple of hundreds of dollars and then you get access, or your employees get access to hundreds or thousands of classes. Well, throughout this time, we've been doing experiments and trying to understand how we can automate as much as possible the human tutors, the human trainers. So nothing worked until March 2023, when OpenAI released GPT-4, and the GPT-4 class models allows us to do things which were previously unheard of, kind of like sci-fi. The way it looks now is that we'll be able to automate a big chunk of what trainers used to do, automate a big chunk of the content delivery part. Even think about avatars, about interactive avatars which are personalizing to everyone. We'll potentially be able to solve Bloom's two sigma problem, so provide the dream of a personalized tutor to everyone. Eventually, I think that things will not stop there, and there's already companies which are moving beyond this. So we are already working on things like personalization to everyone around this, with this avatar which speaks with language, with voice, every conceivable language on earth. But we're also looking at things like computer use, because if you take a look at least I come from the space of technical and management upskilling, you probably have 60% of content delivery in a macro learning experience, which would be like a training. It used to be like a 3 to 5 day class where people sat into a room, then it would be online. You have like 60% of content delivery where trainer delivers something, and then 40% is what we call labs. And those labs, those used to be lugging servers and Cisco routers and switches all over the place, putting them into a rack, cabling them, and so on. That was like 15 years ago. Then it became virtual machines, and now you can access those virtual machines from everywhere. However, now with models with computer use, you can actually look at what an instructor is doing. You can record everything, and we're looking at emulating this and providing a machine which actually allows us to show people how things are being done. Then the other major thing is we can track every interaction with our platform, but I'm sure there's others as well, and correlate this potentially down the line with KPIs about which the company cares about. So we're no longer just looking at all kinds of studies and questionnaires at the end of the class, but rather really correlating training or upskilling on reskilling initiatives with return on investment. So you know when you invest your earned pounds or dollars or euros, where you're putting this. That's my view. But then the key thing is, I may sound a little bit pessimist here. I'm sorry if I offend someone in the audience, but I really think that we are going to face some very interesting challenges for quite a lot of people who will not be able to adapt. Maybe because of a fault of their own, may not be because of a fault of their own. And that could be that their organization doesn't adapt properly. They don't adapt their job and what their tasks are and their job description quickly enough, because we will get to the point where once you train the machine how to do a certain thing and it's able to show others how to do the thing, then at one point of time, someone probably with a financial function might ask themselves, all right, why do we really need so many humans doing this job? And that's what we already see with call centers, BPO outsourcing. That's already happening there, but it's a wave, and it's really a function in someone's Microsoft Excel in the budgeting, trying to understand whether they want to automate this. So we will have some kind of a crisis of an ego crisis, if I may. That's what I think will happen.
There are a number of quite interesting points there, so I'll just pick them up as in the order that I remember them.
Sure.
But the first one is, you mentioned Bloom's 2 sigma problem. I don't think we need to go into that now. We both understand that. But for anybody who's watching, if you don't understand that, there will be an explainer video on the channel after that. The second thing is time-wise. So we are recording this at the end of March 2025. The
24th.
Release date of this, yeah. And then the release date of this will be sometime in the future, editing and all of that stuff. And one of the things that I gave a webinar on this in the middle of March, and I also have a blog article coming out towards the end of March, which is on the paradigm of SCORM. So SCORM is the effectively standard file format and data standard for LMSs, learning management systems. And we have this exciting capability with generative AI to have conversational data, so sentiment and semantic analysis and things like that. And what you're talking about is along the lines of examining generative AI capability to think differently about what we do. Now, one of the barriers, I think, to radical transformation, not just iterative, but radical transformation in this space, is the reliance on some of these older sort of models, frameworks, data standards, file formats, this kind of thing. When we start to think about virtual tutors and we have sort of generative AI support capabilities and we have the ability to potentially replace some trainers, we have the big beast in the room is when or if ever are we going to be able to move away from this completion checkmark as a data standard towards new types of data which allow us to get better insight into how people interact and how people behave. In the virtual tutor space that you're talking about, is there a move towards different types of data?
Tough one. There's a lot of vested interests in there, and there's a lot of companies which are playing in this space. Honestly, SCORM is a format which me and a bunch of friends of mine, we've been waiting for its death for 20 years now.
Yeah.
Plus minus. I guess it's here to stay. I mean, the way we adapted our product is we just decided to develop kind of a vacuum cleaner so it can ingest everything and work with all kinds of textual data and whole websites and audio and video and all that, embed this into a vector database and lots of metadata and lots of tagging, proprietary algorithms and so on. It's kind of a MacGyverish solution. There's a lot of duct tape included into building this because we're assembling it as we are delivering projects to customers. but I don't think there is anything new in terms of new types of data. Maybe in the future, but we'll see. I mean, I can't honestly, I can't wait for some next generation of. There wouldn't be large language models anymore, but rather world models, which would understand the physical world around us, and then the next generation of robotics. That'll be interesting, and then we'll need new types of data. But we're talking a couple of years down the line. Not too many, not 10, less than 10.